Could you just first of all just give us a bit of an overview about yourself, your name, your background, where you've studied previously, and kind of what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, so my name's Megan Smith. I've just recently graduated from St Mary's University with Sports Coach Science, and currently undertaking a Masters of Research to do with micropolitics and the environment. I'm currently based at QPR in the Community Trust as a Primary Stars Officer, and beforehand I was on the FA National Game Youth Council as Partnerships Officer and at Chelsea as a Women and Girls Development Officer, so yeah, quite a diverse background.
Did you do kind of much volunteering whilst you were a student at St Mary's? Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so volunteering was one of the key things for me, right from being a 15-year-old child in school to right the way through uni. I think it's really, really important. That kind of gives you the edge when applying for different jobs and vacancies, and it gives you a lot of exposure to things that you don't always get in a job role.
You spoke a little bit about being on Youth Council. Kind of what skills did you develop whilst you're on Youth Council? How did you support your uni work and what you've gone on to do after university?
I think the Youth Council really supported my uni development because it gave me a really good emphasis on time management. I think with my course it was only around 7 hours a week, so the biggest thing for me was gaining the other things that could support that, and that was through work and voluntary work. And the FA National Youth Council was a fantastic element for that. The people you're exposed to, the skills that you learn, especially from a leadership perspective, I think that really supported me moving forward.
And your role at Chelsea as Women and Girls Officer, did you do that alongside studying, and how did you manage your time, and what kind of things were you doing at Chelsea?
Yeah, so I did that part-time, the Premier League Girls programme, so 30 weeks in a school with 12 different girls sessions, which was great. So 11 to 15, so now I've gone to primary from secondary, so it's really interesting to see the difference. And we did a lot of engagement, both playing and coaching and leadership, because for me it's not just about being a player, it's looking at all the other avenues that you can support the game.
When you're working with kind of those secondary school students or even now the primary students, do you think, having been at university and been a student, you see yourself as a bit of a role model? Are you encouraging those girls to go to university, and where do you see yourself working with those girls?
Yeah, definitely. I hope that they look at that and think I can do that maybe one day. It's giving them the opportunity to believe that they can do it, because maybe some people just haven't thought about that. So it's maybe sparking a few thoughts and ideas to maybe want to try and do that themselves.
Fantastic. What, kind of going back kind of to the first age, you mentioned kind of when you were 15 and wanted to volunteer, what inspired you to get involved in football and then in football volunteering?
I think for me it was because I couldn't play consistently and I wanted to give back. I didn't want to leave the game. I knew myself that I loved playing, and I wanted to create provisions for other people to be a part of that. I love girls football, and I have done since a tot, and I wanted to make sure I could give maybe at least 10 or 1% of a club the chance to do that, because I couldn't.
How have you found kind of moving from Chelsea to work at QPR? Kind of what challenges have you faced, and were there any aspects of your degree or being in a HE environment that have supported you in kind of managing these challenges?
Yeah, I think it's a massive difference. I think you get that within all organisations, and I think if I hadn't have done my dissertation in micropolitics, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So credit to my degree, that was the best thing about it that I always wanted to do, is the dissertation, and that really helped shape my career development moving forward. I think, again, a lot of it comes down to the culture and emotional intelligence, and you can kind of get to be aware of that when you change your organisation. So for me, I think that really helped my transition.
And you talk about your dissertation. Did you, I don't know tell me if I'm wrong, but through kind of your links and your volunteering, that supported you in completing your dissertation, didn't it?
Massively. So I was really grateful that Donna McIver really supported my development, and I proposed to her what I wanted to do, and she said yes straight away, and helped me obtain the most fantastic people for my research, which was absolutely fantastic. And even just spending the hour with them being interviewed, I think really supported me, and if I hadn't have done my degree I wouldn't have been able to do that. So again, linking the voluntary back to the HE, it's been a great asset.
Right, let's do the rest of the questions on the seat.
Cool. What do you think are the main challenges for women involved in HE women's football?
I think some of the challenges come down to finding the opportunities. I think with a lot of the men's game and the men's clubs, you get that promo on the websites for like different job opportunities, and it's gaining that access. I think with the women's game, if you specifically want to work in a women's club or a women's setup or a Wildcat session or something like that, it's finding the right people to contact to be able to get involved in that. So I think it's really important that as a volunteer or someone in HE that you pinpoint the people who you can really influence to try and access them opportunities.
So kind of, you mentioned a little bit there about building your network and the importance of networking. What did you kind of do to build your network whilst you're a student, and how has this helped you on graduating?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be where I am without my network, and I can't thank them enough for what I've done. And I think a lot of that comes down to a mentor as well. I think if you can obtain the right people at the beginning of your journey, you can only develop with them. They can expose you to different areas of the industry, they can expose you to people who can help support you along the journey, and I think you can get access to all different aspects of the game, not just one specific. So I think a network's really important.
What advice would you give to current students looking to get involved? So you've kind of mentioned a little bit around networking and things like that, but what would be kind of your top tip to getting involved in football, both at university but also after university?
I think my top tip would be make the most of every opportunity. I think right from as soon as you get to the university, whether you're home based or whether you're away from home, get into something, get into a club, get into an organisation, because I think that builds your degree. There's no way I would have obtained my degree result without my experience, because you can apply it and then you can apply that learning to there, and I think it's so important that you do both.
And looking back and reflecting on kind of your journey, and what skills or behaviours have you developed from being part of football and being involved in this industry?
Yeah, I think communication's massive. You're exposed to so many different stakeholders within organisations, and communication's key. I think adaptability is a massive one as well, and also time management within that. For me, a massive one is emotional intelligence. I think that's because of my research background that I'm really quite hard on making sure that people are aware of that. Because I think if you can be emotionally intelligent, then you can try and influence and be aware of most situations that you're in.
And you mentioned kind of emotional intelligence. I know this is kind of what you'd like to do a bit more research in and kind of explore a little bit more. What are you looking to do in the future? What are your aspirations for how you can use that and kind of build it into your football experience and your football environment?
Yeah, so I really want to take my research of micropolitics, which links quite heavily to emotional intelligence, create it into like a module, because I think there's a gap at the minute for especially young females coming through the game, and there's that gap between obtaining the high management roles, and I think that could be the bridge in between it. So I'd quite like to go into the HE environments and help educate these young females on how to obtain them high roles through being emotionally intelligent and aware of the micropolitics.
And for kind of young females, so people who aren't even at university or maybe haven't engaged with football yet, what advice would you give them, or what would you say to them to encourage them to get involved? And
don't be afraid, just go for it, because you never know unless you try. And if something works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you learn from it. And I think that's really important, that you just never give up whilst doing it.
Fantastic. What have been the standout moments of your career so far, whether as a student or professionally? What's kind of the real top moments you've had?
I think that's a really hard one. I think one of my biggest standout moments would probably be my interviews that I did for my dissertation, because I gained access to some fantastic people which I wouldn't have been able to without my network, and probably going to Berlin on the FA Leadership Programme with Carl Lines, and delivering to a group of 26 from around the world. That was pretty incredible, and completely changed my perspective upon returning back. So I think that would definitely be my biggest standout moment.
Fantastic. So I'm sure if you've got any more questions. I think you've got nailed all of them. Yeah, I think that's kind of all of it. Yeah, sorry. So from kind of your university experience, what was the key thing that was most beneficial to you or most influential in kind of securing a role within the game after university?
I think from university, one of the biggest key things is the knowledge that you gain, and that when you go to the interviews, you've got substance to apply behind it. And I think from outside of university, yes, you can develop yourself and your knowledge through different CPD, but I think uni gives you something that's unique, that and volunteering and job experience can really help when you come to an experience of being able to really give emphasis in competency questions.
Fantastic. And now you're kind of working on the Primary Stars programme. Could you tell us a little bit about the programme and what kind of your day-to-day role is in that programme? Yeah,
so as a Primary Stars officer, one of the key things that we do is engage with children through literacy, maths and PSHE, and then we support teachers to deliver best PE. So last term I actually had a teacher for the Girls Football Club, because we wanted to create a legacy of exposing them to how you can deliver girls football in primary school, so they can continue that after we're gone.
And is that kind of a continued thing? You're looking to create a legacy, to create more women's football participation. Is that kind of top priority for you?
Definitely. For us, our priority is making sure we get that face-to-face contact, and we have that direct impact. here at the club we are a really community-based team, and that's what we value the most, is actually going out there, dealing with these people and making sure that they're aware of things, but also getting that personal contact of making sure we know what they want and what they need, because there's no point in us going in there and blasting loads of information and support if it's not correct for them. So we have a really high emphasis on contact. So.
And with those kind of girls and young girls that you're working with, do you see a change in them once they start participating in football? Is there a bit of a difference? Do they have more confidence? What kind of changes do you see?
The change is huge, and I think that's probably one of my favourite things, is seeing the little girls come into the first session not really sure what to make of it and thinking, am I right to be here? And by the time you get to the end, they're totally different. They really come out of their shell, and they want to take on more challenges. I think football isn't just about the sport, it's about everything else that comes with it, and to be a young girl from 5 onwards, that's incredible within the primary schools.
We have a lot of kind of HE students that go out and coach in primary schools as part of our Bucks Hub programme. How do you think having a female in that position, in that coaching role, can really support the girls more in the future?
I think it links to role models. I think when you go into primary schools, some of the biggest things that the girls want to see is females within the game. It then makes them feel that maybe one day they could do that, or if you're not a stereotypical footballer, that you can be like that too. Something we have quite high emphasis on is the braiding. So the girls absolutely love it when you have plaits and they think, oh, then they come in the next day and go, look miss, I've got the same plaits as you, now we can be a full football team. And it's the little things that make the difference.
And so kind of for HE students, is it quite a nice environment to go and work with these young girls? Because obviously we've got a lot of people who maybe want to get involved in coaching or leadership but don't quite have the confidence. Kind of what advice would you give them, and what kind of environment would they be expecting if they're going into schools?
I think working in primary schools will give you the biggest life lesson, because it's one of the biggest challenges, but it's also the most rewarding. I think as a coach or a teacher, it's probably one of the most difficult environments because you've got such diversity, but you can really have an impact. And for me, that's the best thing about it. And my advice to HE students would be go for it, because you'll love it. And if you don't, you know what you can do next on your journey.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cool.